on Talking Points. Deportation raids are underway in the United States, generating fear from some over the possible start of a war on immigrants.
People didn't think this was going to happen, and now it's happening here.
The world is responding to North Korea's ballistic missile tests. We'll discuss what it means for America and its Asian allies.
It's very important that there is a strong response by the whole of the international community, including the Security Councils.
And I sat down with Syracuse professor Glenn Morgan to discuss U.S.-UK relations in the age of Trump and Brexit. All that and more ahead.
Good evening, Syracuse. I'm Josh Carney.
And I'm Mike Riccardi. We begin tonight by taking a look at the major shakeup in the National Security Council.
Our top story tonight, Trump's National Security Advisor Michael Flynn resigns amid controversies regarding Russia.
On Monday, Flynn stepped down after questions arose as to whether or not he misled Vice President Mike Pence and the FBI about his dealings with Russia.
Flynn's under fire for making calls with the Russian foreign minister on December 29th, weeks before the inauguration. The calls were in regard to Russian sanctions that were imposed after Russia allegedly tampered with the U.S. election.
Since the call was before being sworn in, Flynn's conversations could be in violation of the Logan Act. The law prohibits private citizens from making foreign policy on behalf of the U.S. administration.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said he expects to investigate an investigation by the Intelligence Committee into Flynn's discussions. Here's what Delaware Senator Chris Coons had to say about the situation.
Well, the credible allegations that the Trump campaign at the highest levels was in regular contact with Russian intelligence are the big deal here. And it's striking that President Trump is now criticizing what he calls the fake media for having attacked a man he just fired.
So I'd say the real problem here is the fundamental chaos that is pretty much metastasizing in the media for the Trump administration.
Well, you have several members of the Trump team saying all different things throughout the week. You have Kellyanne Conway going on different talk shows, appearing and saying things that are vastly different than what Sean Spicer is saying in the press room. And we had the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Jason Chaffetz. He didn't say that he thought the committee would investigate it, but then yesterday he requested that the Department of Justice Inspector General did start an investigation.
This is also the first opportunity that the Republicans will have to check their own party within the executive branch, so we'll be able to see whether they take advantage of that opportunity or not.
Certainly a lot of questions moving forward.
For sure.
Ahead, we'll discuss the deportation raids underway in the U.S. Stay with us.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it.
You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. Got it. No.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early.
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Over the past week, immigration and customs enforcement officials have conducted deportation raids all across the country, prompting accusations that Trump has started a war on immigrants. Stephen Choi, the executive director of the New York Immigration Coalition, commented on the details of these raids. Take a listen.
But the point is that hundreds of people have been swept up. And what's worse is that the rumors of these raids have taken a tremendous psychological toll on our immigrant communities.
Talking Points contributor Sabrina Maggiore is here to discuss. Sabrina, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we just heard Stephen Choi's comments on the deportation raids. What do you make of those comments?
So ICE agents over the past week have stormed homes and workplaces in various cities across the U.S., including Atlanta, Austin, New York, and LA. Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly said that 680 people were arrested, and of these 680 people, 75% were accused of crimes, meaning that 25% were not illegal aliens.
And President Trump said that those that did not commit crimes didn't have to worry.
Yeah. Trump said that the raids are targeting criminals. He said in Sunday tweets that the crackdown on illegal criminals is merely the keeping of campaign promises. And ICE officials have also said that these are routine raids. So, but in spite of this, immigrants are still pretty concerned. There has been a lot of concern among
And what effects are these having on the immigrant communities?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of fear and anxiety in immigrant communities. Leaders at United We Dream and the Coalition of Humane Immigrant Rights of LA said that they've gotten hundreds of calls over the past week. Advocates right now are working to ensure that immigrants are aware of their rights and also are aware of what to do if ICE does raids on their workplace or homes.
Are these ICE operations different than the ones that were conducted during the President Obama and Bush years?
So both Bush and Obama did have fugitive operations. Obama was actually known as the deportation president. He deported more than 2.5 million criminals over his eight years. ICE is being guided by Trump's executive order right now, and the wording of the order says that people who have committed acts that constitute a chargeable criminal offense would be priorities. And this is different from Obama's priorities because Obama essentially prioritized people that were charged of felony or misdemeanors of significance. And Obama, in 2016, only 99.3% of ICE removals met priorities. So that's different than right now when we're really not sure what's going to happen under Trump's.
Sabrina, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
The fight to eliminate AIDS here in Syracuse has seen little success, but it's only the beginning. Local correspondent Ray Marek explains how the mayor and her task force plan to end the epidemic by 2020.
I also share my story. I am a young gay black male who is on crack.
Speakers of all different backgrounds, healthcare providers, hospital workers, even those fighting HIV themselves, came downtown to help end the AIDS epidemic in Syracuse. The event was led by Nikki Jennings, an AIDS specialist at Upstate Hospital and the co-chair of the mayor's task force to end the epidemic.
Actually, Onondaga County has the highest rates of chlamydia and gonorrhea in the whole state. So this really is a problem here. And when we have high rates of other STIs, we have high rates of HIV.
The task force is nothing new, but now Nikki and her team say they are amping up their efforts.
Our goal is to reduce new HIV infections down from around 3,500 to 750. So that is a pretty ambitious goal.
The community was able to ask a variety of questions addressing all types of concerns. Perhaps the most powerful moment of the night came when a local veteran expressed her personal frustration.
What about us that's getting ready to go out to the civilian world and get on the outside? And the VA, the people that are in the VA, they can't even get regular medicine.
Now Nikki tells me there will be many more events just like this one with panels and guest speakers here to offer any advice and all the information that you might need to know, such as where to go for basic necessities such as PrEP and testing, especially as the fate of resources like Planned Parenthood remains uncertain. Reporting, Ray Marek, CitrusTV.
Consensus CNY claims to have a solution to the numerous economic issues faced by Syracuse and Onondaga County. The civics group has put forth a comprehensive plan to create a single metropolitan government between Syracuse and Onondaga. Talking Points contributor Connor White is here to tell us more. Connor, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So Connor, what exactly will consolidation accomplish?
What they're looking to accomplish is to essentially improve government spending efficiency. And that's a big problem here. Poverty is an incredible issue across Onondaga and the city of Syracuse. A recent report showed that we are 294th out of 300 cities in economic growth, and the average wage level is less than 20% than that of the rest of the nation. And what they're looking to do with consolidation is essentially to cut down on any overlapping spending programs that the city and the county do to basically make tax dollars more efficient.
And what type of pushback has this issue seen?
Mayor Miner is massively opposed to this. She believes that the way that the deal could be set up would ultimately give Syracuse and Syracuse residents the short stick. She sees Syracuse being saddled with debt that Onondaga has, that other cities would not, in the county, would not have to deal with. And she also notes that in the report, school districts are almost completely left out. Now, the report does note that and says that they will look to address that in around 6 months' time. But for now, a major concern is whether or not school districts will be left behind in consolidation.
So Mayor Miner's opposed. Where exactly is the support coming from?
Governor Cuomo is really pushing for this. The plan that he set forth could actually bypass Miner and other city officials. Right now, the way it's set up is as long as state legislators approve, all it has to do is go to the ballot in November, and residents just have to vote on that from there. City officials don't have any say on that.
And when could we hear about a final decision on this move?
It really depends on the state legislature and where they go from this, but in terms of a final decision on whether or not we'll consolidate, it'll be November once the votes go through.
Thank you for being here, Connor.
Thank you very much.
Coming up after the break, the latest on North Korean missile tests. We'll be right back.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it?
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you got? Or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, baby.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
This week, North Korea conducted its first ballistic missile test of the year. But the Pentagon says the U.S. and its Asian allies have the proper defenses to deal with the threat. Talking Points correspondent Zina Saifi is here to talk about the effects this launch will have on the U.S. foreign relations. Thank you for being here,
Thank
Zina.
you for having me.
So we know that North Korea has tested missiles like this in the past, but walk us through what's new with this latest test.
Okay, so the missile test that they launched was an intermediate missile test, which is nothing different from what they've done in the past. The only difference this time is how it's fueled. So usually they fuel it with liquid fuel. This time it's with solid fuel. And another thing that's added to it is that it's on the back of a truck. So the difference if you're fueling nuclear missiles with liquid fuel, it takes longer time because you have to fuel it into the rocket. This time it's solid, so it's faster. That gives them a strategic advantage. Not to mention that the fact that it's on the back of a truck means it's mobile. They can hide it more easily. They can move it around. They can launch it from wherever they want. So although it's not an intercontinental long-range missile that people were expecting, there are improvements within the intermediate missile, and that does pose a threat to the US and everyone else who's opposed to North Korea's missiles.
So sanctions have isolated North Korea, but their relationship with China has kind of kept them afloat these last couple of years. As the relationship between the United States and China continues to thaw, How does this missile threat impact that in any way?
So fundamentally, China's policies towards North Korea is completely different than the U.S. China is actually 90% of North Korea's trade is with China, so that's why the U.S. kind of blames and accuses China for propping up its neighboring dictatorship because of the trade deals that they have. China thinks that we should slowly encourage North Korea to liberalize their economy by opening up to the international community, whereas the United States thinks that no, we have to blame them for what they're doing. China says that they did the bare minimum by condemning the missile test through the United Nations. The U.S. thinks it's not enough. But the difference here is that Trump is now different than the status quo. His approach towards North Korea is quite different than past presidents and just Western officials in general.
And how is that so? How do Trump's policies differ from Obama when it comes to North Korea?
Yeah, so Obama was never open to having communications with with North Korea, and every time they would launch a nuclear test, they would reinforce the sanctions. Trump, on the other hand, is kind of bolstering his alliances in Asia, like Japan and South Korea. So Japan was actually, Shinzo Abe was meeting with Trump the day that the launch took place, and it happened around Japanese territory. So Shinzo Abe was saying that that's kind of like an attack on Japan. So when Trump gave his speech, he had no mention of North Korea, but he just said that he will maintain his support for his allies.
Thank you, Zena.
Thank you.
Turkish forces are advancing into ISIS territory. They began an offensive into the terrorist group's de facto capital of Raqqa last weekend. Kurdish groups are pledging to fight the advance as it cuts through Kurdish territory in Syria. Talking Point's international correspondent Elijah Shama is here to talk about what it all means for the fight against ISIS and the region as a whole. Elijah, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So what is the ultimate goal of this Turkish offensive?
The ultimate goal of this offensive, kind of nicknamed Euphrates Shield, is to make it all the way to Raqqa. They want to push through kind of all this ISIS territory that's still in Syria and really just kind of take the head off the snake, so to speak. They want to take away the capital and really make ISIS's kind of dreams of a statehood just crush them finally.
And Russia is now partnering with Turkey in terms of an offensive. How is that supporting? How are they supporting one another?
It's interesting because earlier, before this offensive was announced, they had been doing intel sharing and there had been joint airstrikes, and it looks like that is going to continue moving forward. That Turkish forces will be supported by joint Turkish/Russian airstrikes. So I think that's the extent of what we're going to see. But it looks like Turkish ground forces are going to be doing the bulk of the work, and Russia's just going to support with air and intel.
How did the Kurds factor into this situation? I mean, they aren't the targets.
It's funny because when we look at what Russia did in Syria, Russia generally said they were bombing ISIS and then would bomb Syrian opposition. And Turkey's kind of done the same thing. They've said they were going to bomb ISIS and they bombed the Kurds. So when we look at this offensive, which cuts straight through Kurdish territory, one of the reasons the Kurdish are pledging to fight is because they really see this as kind of an attack on their territory. They want to separate Kurdish territory, and Turkey wants to have a stake in there so that when the chips fall where they may, Turkey still has something that they can use to kind of buffer themselves between any kind of Kurdish offense.
Right, and now moving beyond those Kurds, what would it mean to ISIS if they actually lost Raqqa?
ISIS losing Raqqa would be the death of ISIS as a state. ISIS would still be around in kind of an al-Qaeda capacity where we see these terrorist cells, where we see these lone wolf attacks, but ISIS's ability to kind of control land territory and kind of administer some form of a government would be gone with Raqqa.
Elijah, thanks for being here. When we come back, our exclusive interview with Professor Glenn Morgan. Don't go anywhere.
We're gonna go out there in the rain. It's gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
After making her first visit to the White House, British Prime Minister Theresa May reciprocated and offered President Trump an official state visit.
Nearly 2 million people signed a petition to cancel the visit, which could be up for debate in Parliament.
The British government, however, dismissed the petition and says President Trump should receive the full courtesy of a state visit.
I sat down with Professor Glenn Morgan to discuss the future of U.S. relations with Britain. Take a look.
Britain has placed itself in an extremely difficult situation whereby it's cut its ties to the European Union and it's hoping to have a global alliance and place America at the center of it. The difficulty for Britain is that Donald Trump is not a traditional Republican. He's an American nationalist. He's proudly boasted that he will put America first. It's not clear how Britain will fit with Trump's American nationalism. It looks like Britain's going to have a very difficult time. The pro-Brexit camp were hoping that there would be this new Anglosphere develop, an alliance between Britain, America, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. Trump has already burnt that bridge to a certain extent by offending the Australians, and the Australians are now talking about tilting closer to China. I think that this Anglosphere will go nowhere.
So, after the executive order that announced both the refugee ban from Syria and the visas from the 7 majority Muslim countries, we saw Theresa May condemn that ban. It wasn't a strong condemnation, but she certainly wasn't in support of it. How do you think that plays a role in how the two of them will work going forward and possibly with their joint policies? Obviously, in the Brexit campaign, a big part of that was anti-immigration.
Well, Britain, like the United States, is extremely divided now between those who are pro-immigration and those who are anti-immigration, those who are in favour of Europe and those who are anti-Europe. When Trump comes to Britain, and he will likely have a visit in the next year, we will see huge demonstrations in Britain, possibly riots. And this will be bad for Donald Trump, it will be bad for May, and it will be bad for British and American relations.
Is there any chance that Parliament could sort of throw a wrench in not only these plans, but this relationship over the next couple of years?
I think that's unlikely because, as I said, Britain's burnt its boats with Europe. It really needs America. It's a shame that Donald Trump is not a pro-Atlantic, typical Republican. It's a terrible difficulty that this has placed Theresa May in. But she's got no choice. She has to become close to Donald Trump, and she has to put up with his erratic behavior.
Despite our best efforts, we can't cover everything that happened this week in just 30 minutes.
However, we here at Talking Points think it's important to pay attention to stories that aren't getting as much coverage. So, here are some that fell through the cracks. A Syrian refugee is taking Facebook to court in Germany over a selfie he took with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Anis Modamani is seeking a court order to keep Facebook from allowing users to share the image after it repeatedly showed up in fake news stories about terrorism. This case brings to focus the legal questions of whether or not people anonymously sharing content online can be held responsible for libel.
The Office of Government Ethics is recommending that the White House investigate and possibly reprimand presidential advisor Kellyanne Conway. Conway is facing criticism for her endorsement of Ivanka Trump's clothing line.
The recommendation increases pressure on the White House to make its response to Conway's comments public. The Office of Ethics is requesting that the White House counsel's office respond to its recommendation by February 28th.
According to U.S. officials, a Russian spy ship was spotted 30 miles from a U.S. naval base in New London, Connecticut, after making its way up the East Coast earlier this week.
If it follows a similar routine as previous Russian vessels, it will return to Cuba after completing its mission.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in the U.S. for the first time since Barack Obama was president. In contrast with years of U.S. foreign policy, President Trump has made it clear that he is not committed to a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine.
Other topics of discussion for the two leaders include Israeli settlements and President Trump's campaign promise of moving the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem.
The Washington Post obtained a video of President Trump's advisor, Stephen Miller, being booed off the stage in high school for an anti-Islamic comments.
Miller has recently fallen under criticism for making unsubstantiated claims about voter fraud during the 2016 election. On the other side of the break, a look ahead at cabinet nominees yet to be confirmed. Stay with us.
Got a quarter?
To end the night, we are taking a look ahead. Thus far, controversial cabinet nominations like Rex Tillerson, Jeff Sessions, and Betsy DeVos have all been confirmed. Some positions, however, remain uncertain.
One cabinet position that is back up for grabs is the Secretary of Labor. President Trump's pick for Labor Secretary Andrew Puzder withdrew yesterday after reports of bipartisan opposition. During a press conference earlier today, President Trump announced his replacement nominee. Trump said that the nominee for Secretary of the Department of Labor will be Mr. Alex Acosta. Acosta is the Dean of the Law School at Florida International University and the former Assistant Attorney General to President George W. Bush. Acosta's nomination marks the possibility for the first Latino in President Trump's cabinet. President Trump says that Acosta has passed Senate confirmation on 3 occasions. Looking ahead, will Acosta face opposition like other picks, or will he receive unanimous Republican support?
One story that I'll be looking ahead to this week is the crescendo in former Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt's nomination process to head the Environmental Protection Agency. Pruitt has been confirmed by the Senate, and a House vote is expected to take place this coming week, but not without controversy. Pruitt has defied oversight requests from Senate Democrats and is currently facing a suit from his own state's ACLU chapter. Democrats are pressing against the nomination as Pruitt remains a vehement opponent of many Obama-era regulations on fossil fuels and climate ecology. He's expected to slash and burn not only regulations that the EPA has set forth, but the actual capacity of the regulatory agency. Pruitt's blatant opposition to the ideals that the agency embodies has evoked a spirited response from Democrats as they call for a delay in the nomination vote due to controversies surrounding an ongoing lawsuit against the nominee. What transpires in the coming week will have a huge impact on the clout of the Trump administration and the future of the EPA.
So with all these nominations, we've all seen them confirmed, and the only one that wasn't confirmed dropped out. It wasn't because people voted against him. Usually you only get one, so it'll be interesting to see going forward whether these two nominees face any challenges.
Right. It's interesting also to see how much bipartisan support there is for a lot of these controversial nominees. So when we see Puzder dropping out, it shows that there is actually a consensus among various senators and congresspersons. So
we'll have to leave it at there.
We'll have to leave it at that.
That's all the time we have tonight on Talking Points.
Be sure to follow Citrus TV News on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. For Talking Points, I'm Josh Carney.
And I'm Mike Riccardi. Have a good night, Syracuse.